In 1979, a computer made a mistake. A small, almost insignificant error in a line of code. But this mistake sent a message to the highest levels of the American military, a message that triggered their deepest fears. It told them that hundreds of Soviet nuclear missiles were currently in the air, heading straight for the United States. For a few terrifying minutes, the Pentagon believed World War III had begun. The president's national security advisor was woken up with a phone call telling him the attack was real and a decision on how to retaliate. This is the story of the day. A computer glitch brought humanity to the edge of total destruction. The late 1970s marked one of the most tense periods of the Cold War. An atmosphere of deep-seated paranoia and mutual suspicion gripped both the United States and the Soviet Union. Neither superpower trusted the other's intentions, and this distrust fueled a relentless arms race. Both nations had amassed vast arsenals of intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBM, each tipped with a nuclear warhead capable of obliterating a city. These weapons were kept on high alert, ready to launch at a moment's notice. The strategy was one of mutually assured destruction, a grim doctrine holding that any nuclear attack would be met with an equally devastating counterattack, ensuring the annihilation of both sides. To prevent a surprise first strike, both nations built sophisticated early warning systems. Satellites in orbit and massive radar installations on the ground scanned the skies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They were the silent sentinels, electronic eyes designed to provide those precious few minutes of warning if an attack was ever launched. In this high-stakes environment, a single unambiguous signal could trigger a global catastrophe. Fear was not just an emotion. It was a strategic and political tool that dictated policy and kept the entire world on a knife's edge. On the morning of November 9, 1979, that fear became terrifyingly real. Inside the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, deep within Cheyenne Mountain, Colorado, the unthinkable happened. Technicians monitoring a wall of computer screens suddenly saw them light up with horrifying data. The displays, which were supposed to show a peaceful world, were now filled with indicators tracking a massive coordinated missile launch. According to the system, hundreds of submarine-launched ballistic missiles had just lifted off from Soviet positions and were streaking toward North America. Moments later, the system reported another wave. This time, land-based ICBMs launching from deep within the Soviet Union. Alarms blared through the command center. The duty officers stared in disbelief, their training kicking in against a wave of panic. Standard operating procedures were immediately activated. This was a threat assessment conference, the first step in a chain of events that could lead directly to a full-scale nuclear retaliation. The most senior military commanders in the country were instantly patched into a secure communication line. They were looking at what appeared to be a perfectly executed, all-out Soviet surprise attack. The system was confirming their worst nightmare. Chaos erupted in the critical command posts across the United States. At the Pentagon's National Military Command Center, phones rang off the hook as officials scrambled to verify the threat. The Strategic Air Command, responsible for America's nuclear bombers and missiles, was placed on its highest alert. Pilots ran to their B-52 bombers, engines firing up on runways across the country, preparing for takeoff. The National Emergency Airborne Command Post, a specialized aircraft designed to allow the president to command the military from the air during a nuclear war, was readied for immediate launch. Urgent encrypted messages flew between NORAD, the Pentagon, and alternate command sites. The president's national security advisor, Zbigniew Brzezinski, was awakened by a military aide with the chilling news. He was told he had only minutes to wake the president and get a decision on a retaliatory strike before the first Soviet warheads began to detonate on American soil. Time was evaporating. With every passing second, the pressure mounted. In the heart of the crisis, a single agonizing question hung in the air. Was this a real attack, or was it a catastrophic system failure? The fate of the world depended on finding the right answer, and they had almost no time to do it. On November 9, 1979, for 10 terrifying minutes, the world teetered on the brink of nuclear war. Strategic Air Command was on full alert, bombers taxiing for takeoff. And fingers were hovering over launch buttons, all in response to what appeared to be a massive, coordinated Soviet nuclear strike. The system was screaming that hundreds of missiles were inbound, targeting critical military and civilian centers across the United States. The end of the world seemed not just possible, but imminent. Then, a strange sense of calm began to cut through the panic. A single critical question emerged. If this was a real attack, where was the corroborating evidence? The command center staff began a frantic process of verification. They checked with the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, deep inside Cheyenne Mountain. Their screens were blank. They contacted forward operating radar stations scattered across the globe, from Alaska to Greenland. Their operators reported clear skies. Nothing. Not a single blip. The most advanced eyes in the sky. A network of sophisticated satellites designed specifically to detect the heat signature of a missile launch saw absolutely nothing. The infrared sensors that could spot a rocket engine igniting from thousands of miles away were silent. The data just didn't add up. On one hand, the primary warning system was painting a picture of absolute Armageddon. On the other, every single secondary and tertiary verification system was reporting complete peace. The two realities were impossible to reconcile. Inside the command centers, a horrifying realization began to dawn on the senior officers. The attack wasn't real. It couldn't be. The flood of data pouring into their systems had to be a ghost, a phantom. An investigation was launched in real time, even as the alert continued. Technicians scrambled to trace the source of the warning. They quickly discovered the unbelievable truth. It wasn't a Soviet attack. It was a mistake. A training tape, a simulation designed to test the readiness of the system by mimicking a large-scale nuclear strike, had been accidentally loaded into the live operational computer network. The system wasn't detecting an attack. It was playing a movie. The machine had lied. The alert was finally called off. The bombers returned to their hangars. The missile crews stood down. And the world, entirely unaware, pulled back from the precipice. But the incident left a deep and chilling scar on everyone involved. It was a stark reminder of just how fragile the world's peace truly was. The entire event, from the initial terrifying alert to the relieved stand-down, was triggered by one simple human error. One wrong tape in the wrong machine at the wrong time. Let's pause for a moment and consider the terrifying alternative. What if just one person in that chain of command had acted differently? What if a single commander, overwhelmed by the data flooding their screen, had lost their nerve and followed protocol to the letter without waiting for confirmation? The procedures were in place for a reason, to respond swiftly to a perceived attack, because every second counted. If they had believed the initial warning, if they had assumed the secondary systems were the ones that had failed, the consequences would have been catastrophic. Retaliatory missiles could have been launched from silos across the American Midwest. Nuclear-armed bombers already in the air could have been given the final go, a code to proceed to their targets inside the Soviet Union. We are talking about thousands of nuclear warheads being unleashed in a matter of minutes. Cities would have burned, not just in Russia, but across Europe and North America as the inevitable Soviet counterstrike followed. We would have seen firestorms engulfing Moscow, New York, London, and Beijing. Millions upon millions of people would have died in the initial blasts. Hundreds of millions more would have succumbed to the radioactive fallout in the days and weeks that followed. Civilization as we know it would have ceased to exist. All of this, the entire apocalypse, hanging by the thread of a single decision made in a 10-minute window, all because of one wrong tape. This event, known as the 1979 NORAD computer chip incident, serves as a profound and terrifying lesson for the future. It underscores a fundamental truth about our relationship with technology. We create these incredibly powerful systems, capable of processing information and executing commands at speeds far beyond human capability. We build them to protect us, to warn us, to make us safer. But in doing so, we also introduce new and unforeseen vulnerabilities. The technology is powerful, yes, but it is also dangerously literal. A computer doesn't understand context. It doesn't have intuition. It can't feel that something is wrong the way a human can. It simply follows its programming. If the data it receives is flawed, its output will be flawed, regardless of the consequences. The machine doesn't comprehend the reality of nuclear fire or the extinction of the human race. It only understands ones and zeros. It is up to the humans in the loop, the people who design and operate these systems, to provide the final critical layer of judgment and wisdom. That day in 1979 proved, with chilling clarity, that the fail-safe can't just be another machine. It has to be us. It proved that in a world governed by technology, a single simple error can still be the one that ends everything. And so, as the final commands rippled through the chain, as klaxons fell silent and screens returned to their normal, placid green, the world held its breath, unaware that it had just been saved. The crisis was over. Not through some grand strategic masterstroke, not because of a flawless system designed for such an event, but because of the quiet, steady courage of a few individuals. Men who, when faced with the abyss, chose to look closer, to question, and to trust their own humanity over the cold, unblinking logic of their machines. Their actions highlight a profound and often overlooked truth about our history. We tend to remember the wars fought, the cities destroyed, the grand tragedies that scar our collective memory. But how many catastrophes have been averted? How many times have we teetered on the brink, only to be pulled back by the simple, decent act of a person who refused to let fear dictate their next move? These are the silent victories, the battles won without a single shot fired. The systems we build, no matter how sophisticated, are ultimately fallible. They are mirrors of our own limitations. But what this story shows us is that our greatest safeguard has never been technology. It's been the calm, rational, and compassionate judgment of human beings. In the darkest moments, when the protocol screamed for escalation and the data pointed toward Armageddon, it was people who stayed calm. It was people who chose hope over despair, doubt over certainty. We survived not because the systems worked, but because people did. History isn't just a record of what happened. It's also the story of what didn't. The disasters we narrowly avoided, the bullets we dodged. These moments, these near misses, are just as crucial to understanding who we are and the fragile nature of the peace we so often take for granted. They remind us that the future is never written, and that every day we are saved by the quiet heroism of ordinary people making extraordinary choices. If you believe that history is more than just dates and battles, that it is found in the untold stories of courage and the disasters we prevented, consider subscribing to Velvet Night History. Join us as we continue to uncover the real stories that have shaped our world.